She says she's over it. She acts like nothing touches her. But if you're paying attention, her actions tell a different story. The silence, the subtle glances, the way she lingers in your orbit without ever fully stepping back in. It's not random. It's emotional attachment, disguised as indifference. In this video, we're not here to play games or decode every post. We're here to help you see the quiet signs she's still holding on, even if she'll never admit it. A man grounded in Stoicism doesn't chase clarity. He lets time and truth reveal everything. And often, the signs she's still attached are right in front of you. Let's uncover them, one by one. Number 1. Her silence isn't indifference. When a woman is truly over you, her silence feels cold and resolved. But when she's still attached, her quiet is heavy, almost emotional. She's not done processing. A Stoic man doesn't panic in the quiet. He observes it. He knows that emotions often speak loudest when words are missing. Let's talk about that. Because silence isn't always closure. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's pride battling vulnerability. Sometimes it's her trying to understand how she lost something that, deep down, she thought would always be there. If she were truly indifferent, she wouldn't hesitate. She wouldn't pause before replying. She wouldn't watch your stories, check your status, or linger in your digital shadow. Indifference is clean. It's detached. It moves on without looking back. But when a woman falls quiet and yet still stays present in small, invisible ways, that's not indifference. That's emotion trying to hide behind a mask of strength. You may not see tears. You may not get a message. But that doesn't mean she's forgotten. That silence, it might be her wrestling with regret. It might be her trying to regain control, pretending she's unaffected when her thoughts keep circling back to the way you laughed, the way you stayed calm, the way you stopped chasing and started choosing yourself. This is where the Stoic mindset becomes your strength. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That applies to reactions too. A man grounded in wisdom doesn't chase closure. He doesn't demand clarity. He lets silence reveal what words can't. He knows that by staying centered, composed, and focused on his own path, he gives her space to confront her own choices, without pressure, without performance. So if you're in that space right now, where she's gone quiet and you're tempted to interpret it as indifference, pause, reflect. Ask yourself, does her silence feel final, or does it feel conflicted? Because if it's the latter, your stillness might be speaking just as loudly as hers. And in that quiet tension, in that unsaid pull between you, something powerful is happening. She's realizing that you're no longer the man who waits for permission to be valued. You're becoming the man she has to rethink, not because you changed who you are, but because you finally remembered your worth. And that's a silence she can't ignore. Number 2, she watches from a distance. She might not talk to you, but she checks your stories, likes old photos, or stays in touch with mutual friends. Curiosity is a sign of emotional residue. The Stoic man doesn't chase that attention. He simply notices it without letting it control his moves. What you're witnessing isn't detachment. It's quiet observation. She's trying to feel close without being close. It's her way of staying tethered to your energy without the vulnerability of direct contact. And for many men, that can be confusing. It feels like mixed signals. But for the man grounded in self-respect and inner stillness, it's just a reflection of where she's at, caught between letting go and not wanting to fully lose you. You see, when a woman watches from afar, it usually means there's a part of her still processing, still questioning what was real, what was lost, and what could have been. She may not say it out loud, but her actions whisper it. A tap on your story, a sudden like on an old photo from months ago, it's not just coincidence. It's a breadcrumb trail of unresolved emotion. But here's the key. You don't follow it. You don't take the bait. You stay where you are, centered. Seneca once wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And in moments like this, that courage looks like stillness, the desire to reach out, to interpret her silence, to resurrect old memories. It's loud. But your silence is louder. Because you know, her subtle signals aren't a doorway back in. They're echoes of her own reckoning. She's not reaching for you. She's reaching for what she let go of. And you? You've learned that peace isn't found in chasing closure. It's found in not needing it. So when she lingers in your digital space, when she quietly observes the man you've become, let her. Let her sit with the realization that the version of you she once knew is no longer waiting on her. You're not bitter. You're not proving a point. You're simply aligned with a greater purpose, your own growth, your own evolution. And here's where I want you to pause for a second, not to judge her behavior, but to reflect on your own growth. Ask yourself, how far have I come since I stopped waiting for clarity from someone else? Because moments like these, when someone watches from a distance but says nothing, are really tests, not of her interest, but of your inner stability. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts below, or just drop this in the comments. I choose stillness over seeking. I'd love to hear how you're handling these quiet signals. Let's keep building a space where calm is power and presence is our response. Number 3, her emotions still react to you. Does she get easily upset, unusually cold, or defensive when you're mentioned? That emotional charge means there's still something unresolved. A Stoic man doesn't feed the fire. He remains unmoved, letting her emotions reveal more than her words. Think about it. If she were truly indifferent, there would be no reaction. You could walk into a room, have your name come up in a conversation, or even post something online, and she'd feel nothing. But instead, there's a shift. Her mood darkens. Her tone changes. She suddenly needs to prove she doesn't care. Yet in doing so, she exposes just how much she still does. That's not closure. That's emotional residue. Maybe a friend mentions you casually, and she gets visibly tense. Maybe you post something about your life moving forward, and moments later, she uploads a story aimed at getting your attention. These aren't coincidences. These are signs that her heart hasn't caught up with the story she's trying to tell herself. And here's where your power lies. Not in responding, not in matching her energy, but in doing what most men can't, staying composed. The Stoics taught that we can't control the emotions of others, only how we respond to them. So when her emotions flare, don't take it as an invitation to re-engage. Take it as a mirror, one that shows you your absence is still echoing in her world. You're not here to soothe her discomfort or chase closure that's not yours to give. You're here to live your truth, to walk forward with calm intention. Because when a man no longer reacts to the chaos he once felt consumed by, he becomes the contrast she never expected, and the presence she can't quite forget. If she's still reacting, that's her journey to navigate. Yours is to remain grounded. And trust me, there's nothing more magnetic than the man who chooses peace over provocation. Number 4, she brings up old memories. When a woman mentions specific moments, even casually, it's because they still carry weight in her mind. A man grounded in Stoic self-awareness understands that memory is often a form of emotional time travel. She's not just reminiscing, she's reliving. Think about it. She doesn't bring up that late-night drive, that inside joke, or the trip you both took just for the sake of conversation. She brings it up because something about that moment still stirs something inside her. Even if she hides it behind a laugh or a neutral tone, that memory still holds emotional power. It lingers, like the scent of a place you haven't visited in years but instantly recognize. To the untrained ear, it might seem like harmless chatter, but a man who lives with emotional discipline hears more. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So when her thoughts return to you, those colors begin to show, whether she wants them to or not. She could have chosen any memory to mention, but she picked one with you in it. That's not accidental. That's her way of subtly reaching back. Maybe to see if you still feel it too, or maybe to test if the bond still exists. But a man who has grown, who is no longer chasing the past, doesn't get pulled back into old emotional loops. He observes, he listens, he sees the truth beneath the words. Here's what most won't tell you. When she brings up the past, she's not always seeking closure. Sometimes she's checking if the door is still open. But you've evolved. You've done the inner work. So your response doesn't come from neediness. It comes from clarity. You don't need to prove anything. Your worth isn't in the memory. It's in who you've become since. Let her reflect. Let her bring up the past if she wants. But you? You remain grounded in the present, steady and unmoved. Because that's what makes a man unforgettable. Not just how he showed up then, but how he carries himself now. So now I want to hear from you. Because moments like these reveal far more than words ever could. Have you ever had someone bring up a shared memory and you just knew there was more behind it? Maybe you've experienced this subtle emotional rewind yourself. If so, share your thoughts in the comments. What did it teach you? How did you respond? Or simply drop this in the comments. Growth doesn't dwell, it observes. Your insights might help someone else going through the same silent tug-of-war. Let's keep the conversation going before we move to the next sign. Number 5. She compares other men to you. Whether directly or subtly, if you're still the benchmark, good or bad, it's a sign she hasn't let go. A Stoic doesn't need to be praised or remembered to validate his worth. He lets his consistency speak long after he's gone. You see, when a woman finds herself mentioning how someone doesn't do it like you did, or when her compliments to another man feel half-hearted, measured against a shadow that still lingers, it's not just nostalgia. It's residue, emotional residue. She might not admit it out loud, but she's still orbiting around the memory of how you made her feel. Maybe it was your calm presence when everything else was chaos. Maybe it was the way you listened without judgment, or how you never needed to show off because your strength didn't shout. It stayed quiet and steady. Even in your absence, your influence echoes. She notices when other men lack the depth you carried so naturally. She picks up on the impatience, the insecurity, the need for attention. And in those moments, her mind goes back to you, not out of convenience, but because comparison is a mirror. And if she's still holding that mirror up to every man she meets, it means something in her hasn't closed the chapter. But here's the thing. A man grounded in self-awareness, in Stoic discipline, doesn't look back hoping to be remembered. He doesn't need updates or validation. His character was never built for applause. It was built in silence, in restraint, in choosing integrity over ego. And that's what makes him unforgettable. Because while other men try to impress, he simply becomes the standard, without even trying. So if you sense she's comparing, don't let your pride swell. Don't get pulled into a game of ego. Just understand the deeper truth. She's still measuring, because she still feels. And you? You've already outgrown the need to be chosen again. You've already become the man who's remembered, not because he asked to be, but because he couldn't be replaced. Let that be enough. Let that be your peace. Number 6. She responds with mixed signals. Hot and cold behavior isn't confusion. It's conflict. She's fighting how she feels with what she thinks she should do. One day she reaches out with warmth, softness in her voice, a random check-in message that feels almost like she misses you. The next, she pulls back. Her tone turns neutral, dry, maybe even distant. And you're left asking yourself, what changed? The truth is, when a woman sends mixed signals, it's rarely about not knowing how she feels. It's about battling the emotional pull toward you while trying to uphold a decision that doesn't fully sit right with her. She might have convinced herself to move on, told her friends she's done. But the feelings, they don't evaporate overnight. So her actions come in waves, because she's not truly over it, even if she wants to be. This is where a Stoic man separates himself. He doesn't get swept up in the roller coaster of hope and withdrawal. He doesn't decode every message or get lost in trying to figure her out. Instead, he turns inward. He observes the signals, yes, but he doesn't allow them to dictate his emotional state. Like Epictetus said, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. So if you're dealing with mixed signals, don't chase clarity from her. Create it within yourself. Ask, am I okay even if she never makes up her mind? Can I stay rooted in self-respect while she's still emotionally undecided? Because once you realize that her uncertainty isn't a test you need to pass, but a reflection of her own internal tension, you stop reacting and you start leading. And that's what often tilts the scale. Not your words, not your effort, but your ability to remain unmoved in the face of her uncertainty. When she sees that her mixed signals don't destabilize you, that you remain calm, composed, and fully in control of your own direction, it forces her to confront something deeper. Her own emotional inconsistency now stands in contrast to your inner steadiness. That's the paradox. She might be unsure about you, but nothing shakes her more than realizing you're no longer unsure about yourself. Number 7. She tries to trigger a reaction. Sometimes she might post seductive photos, subtle quotes, or indirect jabs. Not to move on, but to see if you still care. The Stoic response? None. Because true power is in not reacting when someone is clearly fishing for your attention. See, when a woman tries to trigger a reaction, it's rarely random. It's often deliberate, a silent tug at the emotional strings she used to control. She wants to know if she still has access. Maybe she posts something suggestive on her story, knowing you'll see it. Maybe it's a quote about finding herself or being better off alone. Just vague enough to spark curiosity, just personal enough to strike a chord. Or she might drop a passive-aggressive comment where she knows it'll reach your ears. But what's the goal here? It's not peace, it's disruption. She wants to see movement, an emotional shift in you that tells her, I still matter to him. But here's where the Stoic path separates you from the noise. A man grounded in himself doesn't dance for breadcrumbs. He doesn't chase after illusions or react to emotional traps. He understands that just because someone throws a spark doesn't mean you have to fuel it into a fire. Because when you don't react, when you remain calm, composed, and unshaken, It sends a message far louder than any comment or like ever could. It says you are no longer emotionally available for manipulation, that your energy is now guarded, your peace prioritized. It doesn't mean you don't care, it means you've evolved past the need to prove it. And that, ironically, is what gets her attention the most. Not your reply, not your jealousy, but your absence in the face of provocation, the space you hold unbothered. She expected a spark. You gave her silence. She wanted drama. You gave her distance. She wanted your ego. You gave her your discipline. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not because you reacted, but because you didn't need to. This is the moment to check in with yourself, not with her. Ask yourself, why would I give energy to something designed to shake my balance? These emotional tests aren't about connection. They're about control. And how you respond says everything about the man you've become. So I invite you to reflect. Have you been reacting or responding with purpose? If this part hit home for you, let me know in the comments, or just type, "I protect my peace." Your stillness in the face of noise isn't weakness. It's the highest form of strength. Let's talk about it below. Number 8. She reaches out by mistake. An accidental message. A random song she sends. A question she could have Googled. These aren't coincidences. They're emotional tests. A Stoic man doesn't mock or romanticize these moments. He sees them for what they are, signs of a lingering attachment. Let's be honest here. People don't just accidentally contact someone they've emotionally detached from. When she sends you a meme she claims was meant for someone else, or texts you asking something she could have found out in 2 seconds online. It's not about the information. It's about the door. She's knocking, not barging in, not fully committing, but seeing if it still opens. And how you respond tells her everything. Now, this is where emotional discipline comes in. A man who's grounded, one who's been cultivating his peace, redirecting his focus, and not chasing after old echoes, doesn't get swept up in the nostalgia. He doesn't spiral into overanalyzing her every word, wondering if it means she wants him back. Because that's not strength. That's emotional dependency dressed up as hope. The Stoic path teaches us to look at intent through clarity, not craving. When Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone does wrong, it is because they are mistaken about what is good," he was speaking to the very nature of human behavior. Her message isn't about malice, and it's not always about love either. It's about uncertainty. She may not be sure what she wants, but that doesn't mean you abandon your center to entertain it. You've got to remember, her mistakes are often well-timed. That late-night emoji, that "oops, wrong person" message. They usually come when she feels your distance the most, when your silence has shifted from waiting to evolving, when she starts to wonder if you've really moved on. And in that doubt, she reaches. Not for you, but for the comfort your presence used to bring. So what do? Nothing impulsive, nothing theatrical. You respond with the same strength you've built in your absence. Calm, self-respecting, grounded. Maybe you don't reply. Maybe you do, but briefly, without attachment. Not to prove a point, not to hurt her, but to protect your peace. Because here's the truth. What's meant for you won't need to play games to find its way back. And if she's still testing the water with half efforts, then she hasn't done the work. But you have. And that's what separates a man who waits from a man who transforms. Let her wonder. Let her rethink. But you? Stay unshaken. That's real power. That's Stoicism in action. Number 9. She asks about your dating life. If she brings it up, even indirectly, it means she's thinking about where she stands. She might say it playfully. "So, who are you talking to these days?" Or casually slip it in like it's nothing. "Bet the girls are all over you now." But don't be fooled. These aren't innocent questions. They're emotional probes. She's not just asking about your weekend. She's checking the temperature of your detachment. She's testing to see if you've really moved on, or if there's still a space in your heart that only she knows how to fill. A man grounded in Stoicism sees this clearly. He doesn't gloat or exaggerate to spark jealousy, and he doesn't bend over backward to reassure her that he's still waiting. He simply responds with calm, centered energy, neither defensive nor eager, because he knows that what matters most isn't what she wants to hear, but whether he's living in alignment with his truth. For example, if she asks, "So, seeing anyone lately?" You don't need to perform. A simple, "I've been focused on myself, building things that matter," speaks volumes. It lets her know you're not lingering in the past, but you're not chasing validation through someone new either. That's the balance. That's the discipline. Stoicism teaches that we don't control others. We only control how we respond. And when she's fishing for emotional clues, your greatest power is stillness. Let her feel your composure. Let her sense the peace you've built in her absence. Because what unnerves most people, especially those who once had a hold on you, is realizing they no longer have the emotional influence they used to. So, if she brings up your dating life, take it as a sign, not of weakness on her part, but of reflection. She's looking back. She's wondering. And the way you respond, that tells her everything she needs to know about the man you've become since she left. Number 10. She still gets jealous. Even if she claims to have moved on, signs of jealousy, mocking your new life, asking too many questions, or acting distant, reveal a heart not yet free. The Stoic man doesn't weaponize jealousy. He stays above emotional games, anchored in purpose, because he understands something deeper. Jealousy is often a mirror, not a weapon. It reflects more about her unresolved feelings than it does about your current actions. Let's say you're out, living your life, happier, healthier, more centered. You post a photo with friends. She sees it, and suddenly, she's cold. Maybe she throws a passive-aggressive comment your way. Maybe she casually asks, "So, who's that girl?" As if she doesn't care, but you can feel the edge in her tone. That's not indifference. That's investment. That's her way of saying, "I still feel something, but I don't want to admit it." A man grounded in Stoicism doesn't take the bait. He doesn't get flattered, nor does he retaliate. He simply observes. Seneca once said, "A wise man is content with himself." That means you don't need her jealousy to feel validated. You don't play the game of posting for a reaction, replying to provoke, or trying to make her feel what she made you feel. That's noise, and you've moved beyond noise. What matters now is that your value is speaking for itself, quietly, consistently. She's reacting not to manipulation, but to your growth, to your peace, to the fact that you're no longer orbiting her emotions like you used to. That shift unsettles her. And jealousy? That's just one way it leaks out. So when you notice it, don't gloat. Don't fall into the trap of thinking you need to explain yourself or reassure her. Just keep doing you. Because when a man walks in truth, even the shadows notice. Let her deal with her storm. You? Stay calm in yours. That's where real power lives. Number 11. She can't fully let go. At the end of it all, if she keeps circling back through dreams, conversations, or shared spaces, it's because some part of her still holds on. Maybe she brings up an old memory when you didn't ask. Maybe she texts you out of nowhere, pretending it's casual. Or maybe she just happens to be where you are a little too often to be a coincidence. These aren't accidents. They're fragments of emotion she hasn't fully released. But here's the key. You don't chase closure. You don't lean into the moment just because it's familiar. A man who walks the Stoic path finds peace not in her return, but in his own evolution. You don't need her to explain why she's still around, why she still checks in, or why she hasn't cut ties completely. That's not your burden. Your job is to keep rising, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. If she can't fully let go, it's not because she's malicious or manipulative. It's because some part of her still recognizes the value of who you were, and maybe regrets how she treated it. But you no longer operate from a place of waiting to be seen. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Know where you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." That's where you live now. You've stopped living in the past, stopped analyzing every signal she sends. Instead, you move forward with quiet strength and dignity. You don't block her out of spite, but you also don't open the door just because she knocked. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a man can do is remain still, unshaken by her presence, unmoved by her confusion, and unwilling to trade his peace for temporary warmth. So if she lingers, let her. But let her linger outside the gates of the life you're building now. Let her feel what it's like to lose access to a man who no longer needs validation to feel whole. She can't fully let go, and that's not your responsibility to fix. It's her lesson to learn. So in the end, if you're seeing these signs, her silence, her mixed signals, her subtle jealousy, then chances are she's still emotionally attached. But remember, your role isn't to chase or decode her behavior. It's to stay grounded, stay focused, and keep growing. Emotional clarity is your strength, and often the most powerful move is stillness. If this video spoke to you, drop a like and share your thoughts in the comments. What signs have you noticed? And don't forget to check out the next videos on screen to keep leveling up. I'll see you there.